Hey guys, Godfather of Anxiety here again. I just wanted to do a short video about the importance of mental health awareness. Given that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, I feel like it's important. The whole purpose of my channel when I started it almost a year ago now was to give people the knowledge that they need to go and get treatment from a mental health professional, and to help people who are, going through difficult things at that time so that they knew what was going on and how to get help. And that's really the whole purpose of my channel. I don't want you guys to waste, years of your lives the way that I did because of a combination of a reluctance to accept that the problem was a mental health problem, or a lack of knowledge about what mental health issues actually can do to someone. So that's been the purpose of my channel. And with May being Mental Health Awareness Month, I thought I'd just touch on why this is such an important topic. Why would they devote a whole month to mental health awareness? And, some of these reasons are going to seem fairly obvious, and obviously anytime they do a month for something, they're raising awareness. And I think that, people realize now that a lot of people are on SSRIs or, are battling some things mentally. I mean, I think the pandemic highlighted just how, deep and how many people can be affected by mental health conditions, right? But I still think that the actual prevalence is even much higher than what people realize. And probably some of the things that end in a very tragic way, with self-harm or some other things, were probably undiagnosed or untreated mental health issues. So the first thing that, Mental Health Awareness Month does is it draws attention to the need for mental health and for taking care of your mental health, which is a multifactorial thing. You got to take care of your mind. In order to take care of your mind, you have to take care of your body and your sleep habits. It doesn't happen by accident. For some people, it does. Some people can burn the candle at both ends, take drugs that maybe could kill another person at taking them one time, take drugs for years, and they never battle these issues. That's just the way that they are wired. But for those of us, especially on this channel, who are prone to anxiety or depression, that's not going to be the case. Smaller things that would be not issues with other people, can affect our mental health. Another huge part of mental health awareness, and this is, I'm encouraged to see some of the various sports leagues give some attention to this, because especially for men, but for adults in general, there's such a stigma attached to a mental health problem. There's so many negative stereotypes. I'll give you just a few. You can't deal. You can't deal. You just can't deal. That's not, it's not mental health. You're just weak. It's all in your head. Come on, we all are going through tough things. Just suck it up. Everyone has a sob story, and these types of things are damaging to people actually suffering from mental health issues. Because especially like in the case of men, we're so conditioned to be strong. We have all this testosterone pumping through us. We don't want to admit weakness. And, and then you, instead of treating mental health the way we treat physical health, where, oh yeah, I'm skipping my checkups and I'm not worried about the fact the doctor says my artery is 90% clogged. Said no one ever. That would be stupid, right? But with mental health, oh, no. Guys, just suck it up, man. Come on, you don't go see a shrink. Go see a shrink. This is the type of thinking that especially leads men, but adult humans, women included in general, to resisting ever going to see a doctor or a therapist or potentially taking medication for a diagnosable mental health condition. And this is, in my experience, this is tragic because I lost 6 years of my life to a combination of this type of thinking, as well as, just a lack of understanding of the physical symptoms that anxiety can cause and that depression can cause. It was hard to believe that something that had the symptoms that I suffered from was coming from anxiety and depression. But, as time went on, I had to realize, I had to acknowledge that was the truth. So, that is a really important thing. Excuse me, guys. It's a really important thing that I wanted to accomplish with my channel, is reducing the stigma for men especially, but for everyone. You'd be a fool. You'd be a fool not to go and get treatment for something that is treatable and that can change your life with treatment. You can resume your old life with treatment. Now, let me explain to you guys, just real briefly, from an anecdotal standpoint. I tried to get help from a mental health professional about 3 years into my anxiety disorder, multiple. I was suffering from multiple anxiety disorders as well as depression. And the doctor, it went very poorly. I was treated as, like, I'd say, a guinea pig. I was given 3 medications, and they were extremely, it basically turned me into a zombie, to make a long story short. And that kept me from getting help again until I was really at my wit's end, and which was 3 years after that. And if I hadn't, I don't think I'd still be here. And in my case, and I'm not saying this is going to be for you guys too, but in my case, medication was necessary, because I was experiencing, at the time I finally got treated successfully, I was experiencing derealization and depersonalization to a ridiculously severe point. And I felt like I was dangerously close to a psychotic break. I couldn't think. I couldn't work, not well. I couldn't communicate with my loved ones. It was, it was a last resort. And I had crying bouts constantly. Guys, I was really in a bad place. And about 3 weeks after I started taking a combination of 2 medications, I could feel things, starting to calm down. It wasn't overnight or anything, and then about 6 or 8 weeks in, I really started to notice. And after about 2 or 3 months, probably 3 months, my wife finally said to me, "You're starting to sound like you again." So I'm not advocating for medication, and I've had to do a lot of therapy along with that medication to make a successful recovery. And medication should always only be viewed as a tool. But guys, that's why mental health awareness is so important, because if I hadn't put my pride aside and gone and gotten help that second time, I don't think I'd be here. I certainly don't think I'd be with my family. And it was awful. So that's why this is so important. So let's get rid of those idiotic stigmas. It's not weakness. You're not crazy either, at least if you're battling the mental health conditions that I talk about on this channel. The anxiety conditions or depression is not insanity. It can lead to irrational acts and definitely irrational thoughts, but it is not psychosis. Another thing you want to do with mental health awareness is promote support. So anytime you bring awareness to something, this is going to encourage others to identify and try to empathize and help people that are experiencing these mental health conditions. And, I would say probably the biggest reason for people deciding to end things is clinical depression, severe clinical depression. And unless you've experienced it, you wouldn't even believe this would be possible. But mental health awareness is going to make it so that if someone starts to feel that way, and maybe they know somebody who's gone through a similar thing. In fact, I remember really, I'll give you this really quick anecdote that I was watching. I was watching ESPN, and they were talking about a hockey player who just quit. He just called up his coach and said he quit. He wasn't upset about it. And the coach, because he had somewhat of a working knowledge of clinical depression, he realized what was going on. This isn't somebody who, was deciding to retire from a sport because, they had decided they wanted to take their life in another direction, or this wasn't an educated choice. This was a reaction to clinical depression. And I remember seeing that piece that they did, and this was several years ago. I'm not even going to attempt to guess when, but it was powerful. It made me think about that. And, that came in handy later on when I was clinically depressed. And that's the power of mental health awareness. I was just watching SportsCenter. I wasn't looking for guidance and mental health, but sometimes the biggest thing is knowledge, just knowing about something. And that little short segment they had on that hockey player, it made me aware of exactly how profound the effects of clinical depression can be, to the point where you just basically give up something that you love and that you've been doing since you were young. That's a pretty significant ailment if it's going to cause you to make that type of decision. And of course, guys, it causes people to make way worse decisions than that, right? We know we've lost a lot of people to clinical depression. So, we want to promote, we want to educate, and, and then this is I'll end the video here. Mental health awareness, and the reason for my channel is to make it so that people go and get the treatment they need. It's about being self-aware, realizing if you're dealing with something that's different, that needs treatment. Don't allow your ego, don't allow other people's perceptions and opinions keep you from getting the help that you need. Guys, come on. That's the whole thing with my channel. Put your pride aside, get the help you need, and it might take more than one try, and it might take months to get better, and it's going to take work, but it's going to be so worth it. If you're anywhere near where I was at back in 2009, it is the difference between life and death. It really is. So, that's why, those are the reasons why, mental health awareness is so important. You don't have to do a physical health awareness, because people they're aware of physical health. They admit they don't view it as a weakness. But for some idiotic reason, we as human beings have decided that because we can't scan for it on a test, although there actually is some growing evidence that you can scan for some mental health issues on a test, but a brain scan. But it's not real. It's weakness. Mental health isn't real. It's a sign of weakness, and that's, man, what a uninformed, uneducated outlook on mental health. And that's why Mental Health Awareness Month, I believe, is important. If it helps get the message out, if it helps people get treatment, if it helps people around people with mental health issues try to empathize and understand what they're going through, then it's worth it. And so that's about my 2 cents on Mental Health Awareness Month. Guys, if you're going through something with anxiety or depression, or somebody who is, have them tune into my videos, and make sure if you're going through something like this, talk to somebody who you love and trust, or go and see a mental health professional, which is where you should end up anyways at the end of this. So I appreciate so much. I can't believe it's been almost a year I've been making these videos. Guys, thanks so much for the engagement, for all the support. I'm so grateful. And until my next video, guys, take care.